is Tracy. Today I'm going to be doing an EDH deck tech for you guys. This was actually requested because I had mentioned earlier that I used to have, before I started making YouTube videos, I had an EDH Kaalia of the Vast deck. I actually took the deck apart because I felt like I was being massively targeted because I did really nasty things, and what was kind of funny about it is that when I built this for the purpose of doing this video, like I'm looking at my price right now and this valued is like a little bit over $600, and I didn't spend that much money when I made this deck. I went really fully out for the purpose of making this video, and I kind of just wanted to have fun. You know, I was kind of building this with the intention of making this video and making it a little bit more aggressive, I would say. So the deck will be listed in the description bar below if you want to check it out and follow along as I'm talking about it. I'm going to try not to separate this into two parts, but honestly, it just may happen. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. But basically, I wanted to go all out. I wanted to kind of make this like a dream deck, like if I was going to build this again, which I probably won't. This is kind of how I would lay it out, but normally I try to make my deck techs pretty reasonable, like how I would build them. Like I said, this is just kind of like a dream. Basically the per point of this deck and how I've changed it, I would say a lot from when I actually built this deck and played it. My deck required basically having Kaalia and really protecting her, which this deck does as well, but kind of my main thing was I didn't really have a lot of like mana ramp and stuff like that. It was kind of like get Kaalia and just make a dude, have dudes and just swing. This is a lot more about, yeah, you want to have Kaalia and you want to, you know, cast things for free basically with her, but it has a lot of mana acceleration. Once you can get Kaalia out faster, and then, just in case like Kaalia is dead and you can't play her for whatever reason because, you know, she's been sent to the command zone so many times, you can still play your other dudes and win that way. So yes, having Kaalia makes the game go faster, but if you don't have her, it's okay, which I think is a really important thing in EDH to realize, that if you don't have your commander, can you still win? So basically, that's kind of what I did. Basically, the mana base I'm not going to go into just because it'll just take way too much time, but you can list it and check it out in the description bar below. I saved creatures for last, so let's talk about some sorceries. So I have 5. The first is Akroma's Vengeance. Straight across the board, this is one of my favorite board wipes of all time now. What's really cool is that since you're having this tricolor deck, you get access to like a ton of removal. Also you have white, which in my opinion, white board wipes are my favorite. They're also very inexpensive, which is great. Akroma's Vengeance really just gets rid of a ton of things. You know, in my opinion, like, you can substitute whatever board wipes you like. This is just a card I personally really like. I never use the cycle ability on it unless I'm playing Avacyn, Angels, and I have like a million board wipes, and I'm like, I have 3 board wipes in my hand, and I'm like, okay, Akroma's Vengeance, let me draw a card. But yeah, the most part, you know, you're just going to be able to get rid of so many things in this, which is really great. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this card. I think it's really sweet. I like how it gets rid of a ton of things, and it's only 6 mana, so yeah. Then I have Blasphemous Act, and I really love this card. I'm a huge fan, and I just think it's sweet because a lot of times it's like a 1 mana removal spell. You're running, you know, in this build, you're running a lot of creatures. You need to be running a lot of creatures, and casting a 1 mana board wipe is really great, especially because you want to be doing other things with your mana. So I love Blasphemous Act. If I'm running red in EDH, I'm running Blasphemous Act. It's really great. This is a board wipe that it's kind of mana expensive and a lot of people don't really like it, but I love In Garruk's Wake. I feel like so many people toss this card away and don't even think about it. I just really love this card though because it doesn't target your stuff, and those other board wipes that I just talked about do, and sometimes you just need to do that. You know, sometimes you need to wipe your board in order to prevent whatever stuff is happening on your opponent's board. So I like In Garruk's Wake for that. Also, it destroys planeswalkers, and there's not many cards that say destroy target planeswalker, so it's really good in certain matchups if you're playing against someone who's playing Super Friends or just a lot of planeswalkers, so yeah. Then Merciless Eviction, because I can't get enough of this card. If I'm running black and white EDH, you know I'm running a Merciless Eviction. Straight up, this card has saved my butt so many times I can't even tell you. The Exile Immunity makes this card really fantastic, and sometimes it doesn't hit your stuff, you know, sometimes you're like, destroy all exile all enchantments because your opponent's playing an enchantment themed deck and you're just like, I can't deal with all that, you know, but sometimes you really, again, have to exile your stuff just because you need to get that off the table, their opponent's stuff off the table, so. And the last sorcery is Wrath of God, because I just like this card and it's only 4 mana, so yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Okay, cool. Instants. The instants and sorceries literally are all just taking care of field wipe stuff or removal, I should just say. So I have a condemn in there because, you know, I just think having access to spot removal is really good, especially at instant speed, because what if like you swing in with your Kaalia and someone goes to block, you can just condemn it, you know, you don't have to deal with that. Or sometimes you have no board. Sometimes you just have no board and you're like, boom, get rid of their thing. Then a Murderous Cut, because I was trying to think of really cheap removal, like mana-wise, and I know so much of this deck is revolving around mana acceleration. So I realistically could have thrown in some more expensive removal cards in terms of mana cost, but sometimes you just don't have a lot of mana because you spent it, you know, with your creatures and things like that. And also too, because sometimes like you Kaalia and make a dude and you have extra mana and you like play another dude, you know, sometimes you do things like that. So I like Murderous Cut. I've always really liked this card. You do have stuff that goes into your graveyard that you may not want to get back, and keep in mind too, people are going to be wanting to kill your things. You have a very threatening board. This is a very threatening type of deck, so you're going to have stuff that goes to your graveyard that you can easily delve away. Then a Path to Exile. I mean, I don't know if I really need to talk about this card. It's just a really good card. Then a Slaughter Pact. I've talked about this card a lot. I really like it. If I'm running black in Modern or EDH, you're going to see me running a Slaughter Pact in there just because, well, I shouldn't say in my builds because I don't have this card, but I'm saying like, you know, when I build these types of decks, I do run it just because I think it's really good. It throws your opponent off. They think you have nothing. They can go in for the kill and you're just like, nah, dude, kill your thing. So yeah, I like it. I mean, it's a 3-mana kill spell. And it's just really good. Then a Tragic Slip. I love this card. You know, the Morbid, you're gonna have probably no issues getting this off because 1, you're running a ton of removal, and 2, because your opponent's gonna be killing your things. Tragic Slip doesn't work in all decks, but I think it works really well in this deck because, like I said, you're gonna be having things die very frequently. So, and then an Utter End, and you know, I feel like this realistically could just be another board wipe because it's 4 mana, but I don't know. I mean, this could probably be a slot. I was just trying to think of cards to kind of add, and I just toss this in here. I do think it's definitely a really good card. I like it. It's instant speed removal, and it gets rid of basically anything, so yeah, I like it. Get into artifacts. I run a ton of artifacts in this deck, like I said, because these are just mana rocks straight up. First is Aether Vial, and you know, this was a really interesting choice of mine, but I kind of like it. I think it's really interesting. I don't know if I'm in love with it in this deck, but I think it can make for definitely a really interesting card. You know, your curve, my curve, I've got like a lot of stuff at 5 mana. You know, you want to be keeping your Aether Vial at like 5, 6, whatever mana. But what I also really like about this card is it can be really good for like the early game when you get it, you know, very early on. And you could potentially be casting, you know, stuff for free basically with your Aether Vial. So I just think this card is really sweet. I like it. Next is Armorelli Sphere. I run this in basically all of my EDH decks, kind of with no questions, I would say. And I'm a huge fan. I mean, I think it's really important in this deck to get your lands. Also keep in mind though with mana acceleration that I think a lot of people forget is a lot of times your mana acceleration is basic. And make sure you're running enough basics in this deck, which I always run more than enough basics because, you know, I run a lot of mana acceleration that requires me to have basics, so just keep that in mind. Chromatic Lantern. I'm not going to say anything about it. It's a great card. You need this in any 2+ color decks, and it gets you mana. Like, card's great. Dark Steel Plate. Super important card in this deck. You know, if you're going to cut costs, which I understand if you're not trying to build like a super expensive deck, I get it. I totally understand. This can be a very expensive deck, especially because Kaalia herself is very expensive, and you're going to be dishing out a lot of money for your artifacts, for your creatures. I understand. Dark Steel Plate's very important. It itself is indestructible, which is critical because your opponent's going to have so much removal, or they're probably going to have a lot of removal. They're going to try to want to remove Kaalia, and you need to make her indestructible. You need ways to protect her. I cannot tell you, you're going to be so targeted, and people are going to want to destroy Kaalia because they're like, you're going to be getting all this cool stuff for free. We can't let you have nice things. This card is totally worth like the $9. It's amazing. It's one of the most important cards in the deck, hands down. Everflowing Chalice. I have actually never played with this card before, but again, mana ramp, do it. Card's good. Expedition Map. So I'm kind of usually one of those people who, again, I'm very liberal with my basics. I love basics, but I decided to run a lot of specialty lands in this deck, and I think Expedition is just really important for those early game when you need like your Temple of the False God, you need your fetch lands. I'm running a Cavern of Souls in this deck, which is really good. And then I'm running bounce lands too, temple lands, like scry lands, you know, fetch lands, shock lands, whatever. Just really, really important. You're also running a tricolor deck, so you're going to be, you know, running, again, those specialty lands. You know, you can't just get away with basics. You do need a couple of things. Even if you're doing, like, the gain lifelines or bounces, those are not very expensive, so, yeah. Then a Gilded Lotus. I really like this card, and I think something you'll notice with a lot of, like, the Angels, Demons, and Dragons is they're going to have, like, double red, double white, double red, white, black. So, you know, you're going to want to be, you know, like Kaalia, this doesn't really help that much with Kaalia per se, but it helps cast those creatures when, like you said, when you're going to be, like, hard casting these things. Then I threw in a Hammer of Perforos just because, you know, you're gonna have haste with Kaalia when you do that creature, but sometimes you just need to Kaalia needs to have haste, so you're like Hammer, Kaalia, play a dude, and then that's just swinging in for a lot of damage, which is great. I also kind of like this tack down ability where you sack a land. Sometimes you're just honestly so desperate and you're like, I need something to do, and sometimes you just really need that 3/3. So, card is really good. I actually can't believe I'm talking about this next card because I'm not actually really a huge fan of this card, but I've never really purchased it because it's expensive, but Mana Crypt, I know this is a really huge card for a lot of people, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, you're taking damage, but there is a little bit of life gain in this deck. I just realized that there's one card that I totally left out of this list, and it's bothering me because I didn't throw it in here, and I can't remember the name of it. It's the angel that whenever you pick on each mode what you want like lifelink, first strike, or vigilance, and I don't remember what the name of that angel is. 6 mana. That angel is really good. That would be really good in this deck, and I didn't throw it in here, but I don't know how they're... Oh yeah, like gaining life. There's a little bit of life gain in here. Not like that much, but you know what? You don't care. You're just trying to get your board out, so your life total is pretty irrelevant for the most part, so... Yeah, and you're also, like, too, with your life, you know, you're playing a lot of dudes, so you can block. So, like, you know, if someone swings in, you're like, I'm blocked with my 5/5 Flying Angel, you know, you don't even care. Mind Stone. I really like this card. I think just the fact that it's a mana rock is really great, but also I think that if I draw a card, there's not that much card draw in this deck because I think you have such limited room in this deck. And, like, what I mean by that is you want to do so many different things in this deck, and drawing cards is not really the top of the list, I would say. So I think just having a card like Mind Stone that does both of those things is really great. Really good in the early game, really good in the late game, just overall like a great card. Then I have Pariah Shield, which, I mean, again, I just think this plus, there's like the combo in this deck with that and Stuffy Doll, which is really good. But there's also other ways of getting indestructible in this deck. Which is very, very important to try to have indestructible in this deck, just saying, so that you can, like, not take damage, which is, like, really good, and then you can just go in and swing with your creatures, which is really cool, so, yeah, Pariah Shield is a really great card. And then a Quicksilver Amulet, and I've never actually, not that I haven't been a fan of this card, just that I didn't run this in my base deck because, again, I was so consumed with Kaalia, but then as I was reworking this, I was like, I need some other way to pump out creatures, and Quicksilver Amulet's a really good way to do it because you're running things that are like 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. The most I have in this deck is actually 9, so pumping that out for 4 is really, really good. It's a really strong thing to do. I also like that it's instant speed, so again, you're going to be targeted all the time. You're going to be targeted with your, you know, with your opponent's removal. So if you can, like, do something at the end of turn after they board wipe, that's just great. I mean, really. And if Kaalia ever gets bounced back to your hand, you can always, like, Quicksilver it in, instant speed, which is great. Okay, then a Sensei's Divining Top. You know, I am not a huge fan of, not that I'm not a huge fan of this card. I've never really been someone who's like, I don't want to dish out the money. I don't want to dish out the money for this card, but I think in this deck, I think you kind of need it. I think the access to information is just too important. I think, again, just the drawing of cards, like, there's going to be times where you're just going to be, like, desperately scrambling for a board wipe, or desperately scrambling for a creature. Like, you really need to have a creature so you can top that off with Kaalia. So I think top is just too good in this deck to not have. Soul Ring. Do I need to say anything about this card? No, you need this card. as I was looking through cards to kind of throw in, why is Tapped Out is being so weird right now? I felt like Staff of Domination was just too good. I'm becoming more and more in love with this card, I would say, because it just does like everything. There's so, you know, tapping a creature down is just fantastic. I mean, really, when you're going into swing and your opponent has like a massive blocker or whatever, just doing that, or untapping one of your big flyers or something so that you can kill your opponent is great, or just straight up drawing a card. I mean, honestly, this card is, oh, and I should mention, gaining 1 life. Yeah, that's really good. Oh, and then, you know, the whole thing, untapping Staff of Domination, just doing whatever you want, you know, when you have like no mana. Yeah, card's great. Yeah, I mean, like I said, a little bit of life gain, you know, card is just fantastic. Speaking of a little bit of life gain, Staff of Nin. I don't know why. I'm trying to like focus on the cards on my mouse and Tapped Out's being like really stupid. Yeah, being about keep, you draw an initial card. Fantastic. And then pinging something. I can't tell you how great that ability is. You know, you can whittle your opponent down to like such little life if your game is going on long enough, which you can do with this deck because your late game is still really good in this deck. You know, you have a really great mid-range strategy here where, you know, you do want to do stuff very early on in the game. You want to always be doing something. But your late game, I mean, if you can just ping them to death, Staff of Nin, honestly, it can happen. Then a Swiftfoot Boots, because, again, you need ways of protecting Kaalia, and just giving her hexproof is amazing, but also giving her haste. I mean, honestly, sometimes, like, Kaalia-ing, Swiftfoot Bootsing, and then creaturing, it's just really good. Okay, then a Sword of the Animist. I really like this card. I don't feel like a lot of people pay attention to this card. I think it's really fantastic. Yeah, it's only basic land, just keep that in mind, but, again, you want mana acceleration. You're really, really aiming towards that. So I think Sword of the Animist is a really good card. Definitely one that you could cut if you needed extra slots, but you know. Then a Thran Dynamo. Again, mana ramp, you just need it, along with Traveler's Amulet, one of my personal favorite ones, which by the way, I really like the new art that they came out with this in the most recent set. I think they did a really good job with it. Then I threw in this kind of, I would say, spicy card. Because it doesn't work for every instance, but because it only targets a certain portion of the deck. Urza's Incubator. I mean, guys, I run this card in Angels, and it's incredible. And keep in mind with this card, though, that you do have to pick. You have to pick something, but I feel like you're probably going to be having, like, more angels or more demons or more dragons. Like, I don't know if you can, I mean, I guess you could split it. Like, if you're doing a more even mix, I would say no, but I run so many angels in this deck just because I just think angels are incredible, and I'm biased, guys. I love angels. I have an angel EDH deck, and it's fantastic, and I love it. But I just think for, like, any sort of tribal decks, I think Urza's Incubator is incredible, and, sometimes even doing it for Kaalia. I mean, honestly, sometimes it's choosing humans because Kaalia's been killed so many times and you like need to make her cheaper. Honestly, sometimes you just do that. So, yeah. And then a Wafer's Bauble. Yeah, it's only basic land, but again, I do a lot of basics in my build. That's just how I operate. That's how I do my mana bases, so. Guys, I don't actually know what time we're at, so I'm just going to stop this here and do another video for creatures, so definitely check that out if you want to know what juicy creatures we're running in this deck. But, yeah, I don't want to try to jam it in, and I tend to talk about creatures a lot because there's good stuff in there, so I'll see you guys in part 2.